Here.
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's 5:35. I'd like to call the meeting, the Property Reuse Committee to order. For roll call, we have Councilor Westervelt and Councilor Bordelon and Councilor McBride present. The first order of business would be public comment. However, I don't see any other individuals lined up to speak at this time, so maybe we can come back to that later if others join. So it looks like it's just the three of us at this point. So we'll move on into communications. The only communications, well, first off, I want to publicly say I apologize for not being able to have a meeting in July. To the community, there were various issues with personal situations. We had a vacation, so we weren't able to host a meeting. But we're ready to go now, and we'll kick things off and start the process and move forward for the fall. With regards to communications, I did send out some communication for the July, I think it was the July 20th meeting, where I provided some comments for the initial meeting we're going to have, and I provided my draft comments on the draft agenda that was given to us from the town manager, a few months ago. I did submit those comments. I also, in today's agenda, it's not in today's agenda, I'll have it on the screen, but I will bring it up. It was in the agenda for the 7:20, so we can discuss that as well. I also received some comments from Councilor Bordelon regarding her comments on the draft. That was included in today's agenda, so that was available for the public to see as well. And the only other communication I did receive, which was also in the agenda, was Town Manager Burt had some comments on the comments that I provided in the draft agenda, making some suggestions on some things that I would need to change or we would need to change on the proposals that I had made, some things that were not, or some things that were in conflict with the charter and some other ideas that he had. So we'll have to discuss them. But I think overall, our thought process is we're trying to work through this document, provide as much as we can. And, we'll go through it at some point. I would imagine we're going to meet with the town staff and others to review our comments. But that's really the only communication that I've had. There's been some emails expressing interest in moving things along, but I'm not sure if either of you have any comments that you received from the public. So I'll open it up to either one of you for any communications or comments that you've had from the public.
Just the thing that you stated, the comments and emails from Town Manager Burt with his suggestions on that. Also some communications, I believe, from Roseanne Katowski wanting to know like when we're going to start to maybe add folks on to this committee, or is there a plan to add other working group to this, or maybe even inviting certain folks to come to participate in the meeting. That's all I have right now.
And pretty much obviously the same thing. I have spoken with a couple people who were interested in being on the panel, and they weren't sure that when that might happen, if it happens at all, which I think it would be a good idea if we did have outside input from someone other than town staff and other than us. Having input from the public, I think, is very important.
Okay, good. Okay, now those are good comments. I think we'll dive into that for tonight for sure to try to move that forward. All right, so moving on from communications to number 5, the approval of minutes. The minutes from the last meeting was included in the package. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to review that. If you have any comments or suggested changes, feel free to bring them forward. Or if not, I can bring it up on my screen unless you guys have had the opportunity to review it. Do you want me to bring it up on the screen, or have you seen it?
If you could bring it up on the screen, that would be good, because I've been having computer issues with the computer I've been using.
Are you able to see that?
Wait one. Yes, I can. Thank you.
So there it is. I'll give you a minute to review that. That was the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay. Yes, I did read it on my phone, but I just wanted to make sure that nothing was different than what I had. So this is good. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Bordelon, do you have any comments or?
Yeah, I've already read it a while ago. I'm good.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to approve. Anyone?
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Second, Westervelt.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of the approval of the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed, any abstentions, motion carries 3-0. Okay, now to get to the meat of the meeting. I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna briefly touch upon. Let me just see if I can find this. What I thought we'd do is we'll go through quickly the comments that I provided, and then quickly the comments that Councilor Bordelon has provided. And then what we can do is discuss in more detail any other thoughts that we have and how we want to move this forward. And I do think your points are valid in terms of getting the public more involved, because the three of us are providing some comments and adding some information. I think that would be the next step, to have more public involved in the meeting and expand the committee. But in any event, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It was in the package for everybody to review. However, I do think this reuse evaluation process should include a property listing. There was an attached listing in the agenda package. I believe it was in the agenda package. Yes, so I'm actually just going to share my screen with that. And this is what I received. It's in the agenda. It's an attached listing of every single property the town owns. The only thing is, I think we need to spend more time on it because it's 5 pages of every single piece of property. I don't think that's the intent of what we're looking to do. So I think first off, what we want to do is maybe work with, if I can ask the town manager if he can have somebody from his area work with us on identifying those properties that we want to list that have potential to review. I don't think it's worthwhile to have an exhaustive list of every single town property. I mean, it's good to have the full listing, but really what we want to focus on is the 10 or 12 properties up top on what we want to address. So with that being said, I also think there should be a map depicting where the property should be, and potentially some value of those properties if they were to be sold, just provide more information for everyone on the committee and the council and so forth. This comment, where I thought we should have a property reevaluation committee, that's one of the comments that Council Burt said was kind of a violation of charter, so I'll disregard that. And then I thought the committee should decide on a particular property should look at. I think we should maybe utilize, use Colchester as a starting point, since we're moving in that direction. I also included down at the bottom in this area to include the EDC and the Planning and Zoning Commission and the RTM, and I think Councilor Bordelon had those comments on hers as well. I added in a
Right,
tab.
because this is going to be recorded, is it possible that you could blow it up so we see a page at a time? So if someone wanted to follow along down the road and watch this video, they'd be able to see it. I think you can just increase the font size at the top.
Certainly.
There we go. Yep. That looks, I think that might be a little bit better. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe go up to maybe 16. There we go. Maybe go up to like 16 font. Or zoom in. That's perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then you can just scroll when we're on the area. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we include the EDC, Planning and Zoning, as Council Bordelon had. Then some of the comments I had was include a 30-year cash flow, traffic study, impact of the school, and I'll address some of these comments in town manager Burt had some areas where that wouldn't be allowed, so I'll touch upon that in a minute. Then assist with the attorney, public visioning session to allow, similar to what we did with Colchester. I thought that should be incorporated in this because that's what we are actually doing at the current time. And then a comment period where residents have an opportunity to provide feedback, and then another hearing, but that's not really a change. It's what was in the existing. So those are really just my introductory comments that I had initially. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to bring up I want to make sure we're transparent, and from those comments, bear with me. This is the comment from John Burt. So I think it's important we understand. He had a couple of comments, and his main issues were the draft requires the town manager establish a property evaluation committee. And I had specifically said maybe make it ongoing. And he said the committee should be more flexible. He pretty much said the town council cannot by charter direct the town staff under the town manager. So it's in a violation of the charter. So I think we need to work with him on how to set this up as a recurring meeting instead of the direction by the town council. The other comment was about the 30-year cash flow. And this is where he gets into his concerns. And I'll blow this up a little bit, Portia. I don't know if that was. Prior to bidding out, the committee can only generally say that the property is not needed by the town. And the best use would be X. He said, until you go through the bidding process, you cannot know what would be built. Could be a 10 apartment units, could be 130 units. Let's say we dictated that there would be a certain number of units. We would then need funding to engineer the project, decide the layout. The town would have to allocate hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we had some good comments on how we need to change that. He said, even in the initial bidding process, that information cannot be submitted until they are selected and several steps take place towards naming them the preferred. That information should be required by the town council. So a little bit changed in some of the comments that I made probably aren't relative, which is fine. But I think this goes into what the two of you were indicating earlier about getting others involved. I think it will be important to get the town, someone from the town staff involved to make sure we're making good recommendations. So I'm not, so we're not making changes that aren't relative. But those are my comments. So I'm going to move into council.
I just want to bring up a segue into that.
Yes.
So one of the problems that were identified with the Wrestler project, or in many projects, there were two counselors originally that were selected by the mayor, I believe, don't quote me on that, to serve as like the economic development, and would go to see like the proposed developers' property in New Hampshire or wherever they were. And the council didn't really know about it until the preferred developer was picked. Okay. If we're able to sit in executive sessions and know town business, we should be knowing at least the top 5, see the applications, have an executive session where those things are laid out. And then when the final 3 are at the top, we should also be able to see the documents as to why the town chose those in a form of an executive session for the council, not just 2 members of a 9-member body. So I don't know how we captivate that, but if 2 counselors could be involved, it could be way more transparent and have more. Because if I'm going to put my name as a counselor to something, I'm not saying I don't trust my fellow counselors, but I think I need to know the process versus just voting and they say, okay, you guys are going to vote on our preferred developer. I didn't even get to see any part of the application process. At the end, at the 12th hour, I'm asking, were they vetted? Was their background checked? By then, they were already chosen. So somewhere, I'd like to see that language a little bit earlier on, where we're actually involving the council that's elected to make the decisions on how we move forward. And I'm not sure how that wording should look. I've been playing around with it a little bit myself, but I do think that this is a very important piece where I feel like we're late to the table. I think we show up and the food is all gone. And we're left to say, vote up or down.
Okay, no, that's some good points. I think we should incorporate those in there. Have you made some of those suggestions in some of your comments?
I've been playing around the document. I just wanted to toss it out verbally. I'm more of a verbal person than an actual writer, believe it or not. So I'm just kind of tossing it and seeing what you guys think. And then I was going to try to maybe draft something up. But I do think there needs to be a different process. Currently, right now, I'm not even sure from the council if we brought back 2 people to be economic development. I just don't think that that's necessarily fair to the whole body. It's got to be a different process. Do we currently know? Do we have 2 people that I think it was Heed and Obrey last time that were put in those positions? Do we have 2 counselors currently serving on that same capacity this term?
I'm not familiar with that. I know I'm on the EDC, but that's a different, that's a whole different matter. But I'm taking some notes on your comments, and those are good comments that we'll have to incorporate at some point, because I think you have that repeatedly.
And also the other thing that I think is important is making sure if we're going to do something as a council, as we learned last night, and I won't go into too much off the tangent on that, but when we do not involve the public and we do not involve P&Z on the front end, and on the back end, we make these deals with these developers and say, we'll give you the full spread. But yet we haven't even talked to P&Z, and it's already written, and there has to be zone changes and changes that P&Z have to approve. Why are we making promises on documents that we don't even know if P&Z and say, oh, no, we brought them in, we brought the developer, it's up to P&Z now. We need to start to bring P&Z in at a much earlier phase in this process. And it needs to be very transparent with the developer as to, if there's going to be any major changes, and there should be much more protections and caveats in that document. to protect the town. And if the developer is willing to take that risk with all of that on the line, that should be written out somewhere. That's another thing that I'm trying to figure out how to word that. But it seems to be backwards here. As a town council, we are not planning and zoning, nor do we have the expertise of planning and zoning.
Very true. And I think both of us have those comments in that. So.
And I also think with the planning and zoning, usually a lot of people serve terms and they stay on for a while. Different towns, I've seen people on planning and zoning 15, 20 years. As council, more of us may choose not to come back next year. Everybody could be re-voted out and a whole different council can come on. Their priorities of what they want can change. When you have it invested in P&Z, it has a little bit more structure and foundation. And that's another thing we should be looking towards. And I'll stop there. So.
Agreed. All right, Councilor Westervelt, you had some comments?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand everything and how this works. And sorry, I'm trying to look at two different screens at once and look like I'm looking away from you, but I'm not. Okay. Anyhow, okay, so Councilor Bordelon, there were, and let me just ask some questions just because I want to be clear on how this worked. So there were a couple of town councilors that were basically adjunct to the planning or to the EDC, and they participated in the RFP process and the selection process, correct?
Don't 100% quote me on me. That's my understanding.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you are, but I believe so. I believe they actually, yes, because I believe they went to go visit sites and everything prior to.
But I
Just to add comment, Aubrey was on the EDC. He was not. So Aubrey probably went as an, she had the EDC knowledge, but I think that's different than the two that was appointed as part of that project.
Yeah, but they would go in and be part of looking, there was an economic development wing on the council. It was only a certain selected two appointed by the mayor.
Okay, but I guess the question I would have is, and if I heard you correctly, the full town council was not exposed to the full slate of developers that submitted RFPs.
To my recollection, and it's a lot, as you guys know, there's so many meetings and many different things going on. I've never been able to say we have these three that have applied and now pick. Okay. I've never been a part of that process.
Right, because I think that's, I want to say there were 4 or 5 developers on there, and I don't think everyone, and you know what, I'm not, I guess like we as a town council, and I'm probably going to get myself in trouble for saying this, we as a town council never got to know the full slate of people in the town attorney RFP process. We never got to know everybody that was there. And that's something that I think we need to try to avoid, that when an RFP process gets done and people submit proposals, whether or not we're all involved in the interview process, I think we all need to see all of the proposals in their entirety, with all the submitted documentation, so that if we have questions, I think if we have somebody that's representing the town council at the decision-making level for an RFP process, I think we all need to be able to provide input in the form of questions that we want answered when they go through the interview process. Does that make sense?
Yes, does to me.
Okay, and that's what I don't think happened before, but I wasn't there, obviously. I know it's not what happened a few months ago. So I just think for transparency, everyone on the town council should be exposed to everything, even if there are 2 that are representing and doing the interviewing. I believe everybody deserves to have input into what questions are asked and what we're looking for. And I'm not sure, like you said, Portia, you're working on wording. I'm trying to think how to put that in writing, so that it's easy to understand and it's an easy system to follow. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I understand. And I'll bring up another example was the Groton Long Point Bridge project, where I had mentioned I was on the committee and there were 4 or 5 different projects that were reviewed, and it was a consensus of the committee that was brought to the council, but the council didn't have the ability to didn't make that decision on its own. So I think we're all talking about the same thing, having the council be more involved in making the decision on the situation. So I think I understand exactly what you're saying. So it's a matter of really working the details of the document that the decision is made at the council level with options.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that everything doesn't really fit this mold per se. For example, like the working group that brought forward the proposal for, I don't know, whatever, tax abatement. What needs to happen is, in that case, it's kind of a document that comes before us, but I think there's not enough working time and working groups on the council as a whole to see that and like review it. We pass things that are on the first read. When it's actually a person, a physical person we're vetting, not an item, I think that changes the game a little bit. And what we're doing property, it's a person. So we're now saying that this person's idea and this person's gonna put forth, you know, what's their track record? What do their buildings look like? What's their resume look like? But when we're looking at like which things we're going to adopt as tax abatements and what the committee recommends, that's a little different because then we're just kind of looking at numbers and paper and things in the state. So I don't know if it fits every mold, but I do think, yes, exactly. It should be a very open process in ways where it's a, when you're bringing in a developer, you're bringing in it's a long-term deal. It's a contract. It's, you know, I really think there should be, I'm not saying maybe there's 10. I mean, God, if we were, you know, it could be a town where someone's bidding on 10 people, you know, put a proposal forward. That's awesome. Maybe the council can't do all 10, but maybe we see the top 5 or at least the top 3, but definitely before the one is preferred. So once again, I struggle with where that could be. I can't see that all 9 of us would be able to be involved if there were 10 applications. I know I could.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
I think it's fine. I think it's this great open dialogue, so I don't feel you're cutting me off at all.
I've been involved in a number of different RFP processes, and to be completely honest, I think the max number of respondents to any RFP that I've been involved with was around 6. So, and that's not an unwieldy number. Yes, we have to understand that there is a finite group of people who do what we're asking them to do. So it's not like every contractor in the town of Groton is going to submit an RFP because they can't, they're not qualified. Okay, so much like, and I'm not advocating that we do this, but much like in past transportation projects I've been involved with, there's a qualified bidders list. And if you're not on the qualified bidders list, you can't submit a proposal. And so I don't know that there's anything like that, but I've got to think that there are specific qualifications. And that's what the RFP process, that's what the RFP itself does, is it lists the minimum qualifications, basically milestones that, I don't want to say milestones, benchmarks that each of these responding parties has to meet before they qualify to submit a proposal. So while you may get 10 proposals submitted, 4 or 5 might not hit every benchmark. And if they don't, then fair process, then they're discounted or they're discarded because they don't. And we have to tell them why. That was something that I think has happened in the past where people were disqualified and didn't know why they were disqualified. That's got to happen. So I understand what you're saying. And if we had 6 responsible bidders, and that's the term they use in my business, if we have 6 responsible bidders submitting their proposals, that is not too unwieldy for the town council to take a look at.
That's fair.
It's going to take maybe more than, it would need to be given to the town council maybe a couple of weeks before the meeting. Don't give it to me on Friday and expect me to be ready to talk about it on Tuesday if we've got 6 proposals to review. That's something that we need to avoid. Give counselors a chance, give them time to review the proposals as they come through. Does that make sense?
I think it does. And I
Yes.
think that's definitely fair because as it stands, we get our agenda packets maybe Thursday night at best. And sometimes Friday and sometimes the day of the meeting, there's changes, which that's life. Things do change. But we cannot have a whole bunch of proposals, and changes in the agenda at 5 o'clock because most of us are at work and, I come home to eat and not time to always check the email right before I fly in. So I do agree with that. One
And
of the
quite frankly, there's not going to be a last minute change. There's not going to be a last minute change to adding a bidder or adding a new proposal. There's an end date. The proposal closes on this date.
Right.
You either have your paperwork in or you don't. If you don't, then you're obviously disqualified. But that paperwork's going to be there. And so we have the ability to set the agenda item for 2 weeks after the proposals were submitted, or 3 weeks after the proposals were submitted, so that we can see it. Nobody's coming in on Monday afternoon with a change to the bidders list. That just can't happen.
I also think it's the casting of the RFP, like what we put in that we're casting out there for.
Yes.
That process is also kind of gray. We don't want to take away the town, staff's job. I definitely don't, because I don't get, I'm not paid to do that, and that's their expertise. But I do think when a property's ready to go up to be sold, okay, so we have this list here of all these properties, right?
Right.
It should come before the council as an agenda item, as a public hearing, way before. We should be going through this list. They're almost, in my opinion, I almost think there should be a committee that's looking at the properties in general. But again, we'll start somewhere. A property comes up, I don't know, whatever blank road, okay, 10 acres. That should come before the council. Yes, the town staff should present to us what they think that property would be great for. But it should come before the council and some town and some casting. And then we should be part of seeing what they're putting in their RFP cast out there to these developers. Like things like, looking at environmental protections like solar panels and, these things. Like, I feel like we get the developer and that's it. He or she's the preferred developer. And we had no chance to review the RFP that was even cast.
All right, Portia, just to interrupt, because I think you're making a good point. I think that's part of this process is the town manager will establish a town-owned property evaluation committee. So once this process is done, that committee will be formed that you're talking about, that will be required. I had put in there to meet, twice a month, but that's when John Burt said, we can't really do that. But I think your point's valid. Once that committee is established, this committee, whoever the makeup is on it, should be reviewing the listing that we have provided in this document and reporting to the council on a monthly or quarterly basis. What are the next steps in conjunction with the planning and zoning? Planning department. So I think you're right on, but that's what we're trying to do, is put it into this document. So it's,
right.
So we formalize it.
Right. And this is the problem, is that there's never been any formality. And so it feels very disconnected as a person who's only been involved in politics for the last 5.5, 6 years. Before that, I just said, new building. Oh, look what Groton built. Never thought about the process, never even batted an eye. But as I break it down in layman's terms, as someone who doesn't ever work for town or never been on until I was elected, it's not transparent. And there should be a process where the community and the council is looking to say, these are what we want, and this is what we'd like to see in the RFP on top of what the town staff bring to us. And for many years, it doesn't seem like that has been happening. And then we're voting on things that I read the RFP after the first developer is chosen, and it's like, wow, where's the solar panels? And why didn't we ask this, or why didn't we ask that? And they say, oh, no, we can't change it now. Attorney's already met. This is the document. It's too
So
late.
what if part of this review is to work it from the town manager an RFP? I've worked on them with you, Scott, as well, is to get what they must have a format for a typical RFP. We embed that into this document, and then we add other information that we're requiring in addition to what's in there already. So I think part of this is we need to review the RFP that the town's currently utilizing.
that's a great plan, and I think it will change organically depending on what we're casting out in that RFP. If we're looking for housing versus a developer or business versus, other things that we're looking for, that may look a little differently.
Yeah, and I think we can lay it out in a grid that, just as you're indicating, depending upon the type of property, it will have different parameters and different requests and, different metrics that they're going to report on. But I think that's a good starting point, is to get that RFP embedded in this document so we can capture the things that we want beyond the current RFP wording. So I think that's.
And then at that time, planning and zoning should be notified that, hey, look, we're going to cast out an RFP on this property. Here's what we're thinking. Here's what we'd like to see in this. This is what the community has said. This is what the council has said. This is what the EDC has said. This is what the town staff have said. Okay, planning and zoning, here's the document. Do you see any concerns that are red flags right away in the language, in the location, the zoning, the coding, the whole thing? Is it an R this? Is it this? Is it, is it commercial? Is it not commercial? When's the last time it's been reviewed for the status of, like the data centers? One of the complaints were that land hadn't been surveyed for commercial in many years. What's commercial now? Data centers was not even thought of when that process was written by P&Z. They never thought in a million years we'd even have data centers. So there's got to be a way that we work in concert, is what I'm trying to say. So at that point, we identify a piece of land, we identify an RFP that we want to send out, we identify a need in the town, then we should be talking to planning and zoning at that point, so that they have the time to meet as well.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, what do you think? And I would wonder if we should make some recommendations to add timeframes into this document, because we should have, it should be, things should be done 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So we continue to roll things along, and right now, there's no timeframes. And I think, when you mentioned P&Z should be involved, it should be involved at what point along the process. So there should be follow-up. So I'd like to embed some timeframes in this document as well as we move on.
And that's kind of what the consultants I've dealt with, when they're putting together, because we usually use consultants to help us put RFPs together, but they have, like you said, time stamps. They have benchmarks they have to meet. 60 days before we do this has to happen. 60 days before, 30 days before the RFP goes out, we have to have had these people review. And so, it goes to the state. The state has to review it, 3 weeks or a month before something goes out. So yeah, you're right. We should put those type of timetables in there.
And our timetables will be more P&Z, whether it's EDC, whether it's
Yes,
public
exactly.
hearings, whatever it may be, but we'll embed those. I just want to back up on one comment, because my thought, what I'd like to see is the options provided. Let's say it's the 6, but I would like to see a recommendation. Like in my past, I've always liked to see the options, but I'd love to have the planning and zoning and the administration make a recommendation on what they think, because they do have extensive knowledge in this area. So although, I wanted to get your thoughts. Does that make sense? Because in my past, I've always wanted to have them recommend or recommend major points on each one, or maybe there's a scoring system. Sometimes I've seen, a scaling system, a rating system on different RFPs. But I think there needs to be more concrete black and white issues than on different RFPs. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on a rating system and whether or not there should be a recommendation from the town as well.
And that could be interesting. I think, there's always some hot items. So I almost think this list of properties, I'd love to see this alphabetized. I know exactly like how many are on here, like, numerically, like out, and kind of categorized by districts in our town. But with that, I think, we should be kind of looking ahead, and, P&Z kind of already kind of reviewing these before, while they're sitting there doing nothing. Like, these are town-owned properties. Where do they sit? Where do they stand? What are they zoned as? What are some concerns that have changed over time? I mean, we should be always constantly reevaluating these properties. But I'm not too sure. I'm interested to hear what Councilor Westervelt has to say, with what you had asked as well.
Well, I'm actually, I was going to ask you to clarify that, but I'm just real quick. I have this question on my head. The list that we have, those are town properties that are available to for reuse.
No, that's why it needs more work. These are just the current listing of town-owned properties. So-
Okay, we don't have any kind of priority. We don't have any, like, these are gonna be available for reuse in 60 days. These are gonna be available for reuse by the end of the year, anything like that. So there's
Correct.
no priority, there's nothing weights anything in this list, correct?
No, and that's what I'll do next, unless you want another way to do it. I mean, what I was gonna do is
Oh,
approach
no, that's,
town manager Byrd is to come up with, to have at the top of this list, what really we should be looking at, because, I mean, Fitch High School is on here. There's no reason for us to look at Fitch, you know, what I mean, there's not, we want relative properties that town manager Burt would agree that we should be looking at in terms of, you know, I would say you put parks on there, you put any open land that's not being currently utilized. But it needs another level of detail, I guess is what I'm saying.
right.
And I'd be happy to take the step forward if you guys agree with that process.
Then I was gonna go back to David, what you said just before Portia talked. You were talking about, I can't remember the word you used.
Two things. One, a rating system. Should it be a point system, rating system when the RPs come back? Because in my different RPs I've been on, they get different points for different grades, and they add them up, and, you know, the person that gets 82 is the favored one over the one that gets 62. You know,
Now, is
even
that
if-
prior to an interview process, or is that just strictly reviewing the RFPs when they come in? Which does make sense. You review the RFP process, you review the RFPs when they come in. And, you know, you can, you know, everybody might have a complete package. However, some people are going to put more detail into theirs than others do. And so are you thinking that that might be, they may be weighted heavier because they did provide more detail than, you know, the person who just literally hit A, B, C, D and gave nothing else? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Exactly, like a job interview, I guess is a good way to put it. Or rating. Now, it's not formalized that you have to pick the highest pointer. It's just to give you.
Oh, no.
Everybody's review. So that was the first point. And the second point was, you know, should we move this forward, and should we request in this document, the planning department make a recommendation? You know, there's one way, some people don't want to have planning make a recommendation. Some people do. I mean, I always like to have the experts make a recommendation. Doesn't mean you have to choose that, but their knowledge and expertise would favor one vendor. This would be all for the council to consider, obviously, but something to consider.
I mean, there could be a rating. I do think when the applications come in, the RFPs, there should be a rating first before even interviewing. But I also think, you know, depending what our RFP states, we should be looking at how close is the person meeting the needs of what we asked for, not just, oh, yay, we got an RFP. That's great. We haven't got one in 20 years on this property. Let's move on it.
Well, and
It doesn't always mean that they're the best. You know what I mean? Like if it's that, you know, I think there needs to be a process to make sure. What we don't have is a map of Groton of what is our 20, what's our 30, what's our 40-year plan. Other towns have that. Okay. Like, so we look at these properties on here and we see Fitch. In 40 years, someone might want to relocate because we're running out of sports field land up there. I don't know. I think we really also need somebody really sitting down, looking at all the open land we have that's on this list that's not, you know, is vacant, and kind of mapping out, because I think Groton does a great job on a lot of things, but at times when you drive through our town, it looks like, oh, what's this? And whoop, now we're here. And oh, now where are we? You go to other towns and you see a nice walkable downtown and a nice district. We have that on the Mystic side, the Groton side of Mystic, but we don't really have that connectability throughout the town, because I don't think we have a plan like that thought. Cutler's up. Okay, Cutler's a priority. Let's do something with Cutler. But what's everything else around it? And what about over here? And we really do. I think we make a lot of decisions without a master plan.
Yeah,
And
no,
that's how we get into trouble. I think as soon as a property's identified as being a need to come off of our list here as our owner list, we should be looking at what we are looking to do with it, but also make sure this document that we're creating also states, before we dispose of some land, that we are truly not in need of it. So has it gone through a process where the town and the community really feel that they want to get rid of that piece of land and it doesn't have any other purpose? So there's got to be, there's a lot of pieces to this. But I do like the numbering, and I do agree if, planning and, if the, like you stated, the experts kind of make a recommendation. But I really think we need to be looking at it from what is our plan? Because I like to, when you look at your own home, you're like, okay, roof, furnace, doors, I got to get new windows, right? You start looking at your master plan, right? And you attack it in a way that is encumbersome. Okay, I got the roof done, I got the furnace, I got the windows. Now I'm going to start doing some interior painting. I'm going to replace this. I just don't know where we're going.
Yeah, no, your point's well taken. I think, just to comment, I was on the council years ago, but I do remember, I read a lot about town of Groton for many, many years. So I do think they have a plan. I just don't know if it's been dusted off or if it's been brought to the council to review, because my understanding is, well, maybe not a plan, but there's a thought process. That mixed use village area downtown where Fitch Middle used to be. It seems to me, maybe there's not a formal plan, but isn't that mixed use village to try to transform that into a walking mixed use development neighborhood? Isn't that why they changed that zoning? So I guess I'm not saying they have a plan, but I think the thought was when they made those changes, and that was many years ago, there was a thought to redesign that to become a mixed use village where it's walkable. And so I think I completely agree with you. So maybe part of this review that we're doing is we come out of it with a recommendation to move forward with that plan. And maybe it needs to be some consulting dollars, because I completely agree that we should be moving forward. There should be a long-term plan. It may take 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years to get there, but everybody should be aware of what's happening. And I don't think that's maybe John Burt and John Reiner are doing that, but I don't think it's out there is my gut.
Well, the TIF districts were a thing, and some people don't really like the TIF districts. And I remember all those proposals, but once again, we haven't revisited those in so long. They feel old to me. Like even it's a person who remembers when they came out. It's and some of our plans sometimes are wrapped in and cumbersome of what we envision if we own the whole strip. So some of our master plans are like over the top in the sense that they're great, they're beautiful, they're functioning. Look at Thames Street. They're having a problem down there. Beautiful strip of land, coastal access, on the water, EB and Pfizer, would go to lunch down there. A lot of landlords own buildings. We can't just take those buildings. So we got to make sure our master plan is obtainable. It has to be an obtainable master plan where we're seeing this walkable district, but how many buildings on there do we own? We're going to wait until someone sells. We're going to wait in 50 years. Who knows? So our master plan has to be reasonable and obtainable.
Agreed.
So we can have a goal of this big walkable district, but we don't own all of those buildings. So what is our plan? Hoping a developer will come in or the owner will sell? How long are we willing to wait? In the meantime, what are we doing? So that's just my thought on that.
It'd be nice to see this list of properties on a map.
Yes.
Because you can, when you're talking about a 20, 30-year plan, or when you're talking about what is going to be like a walkable, or what is going to be your mixed use village, you've got to see which of these properties are clumped together so that you can, from a mile high view, look and see this area would be really good for this because it would service this area, this area, this area, the surrounding areas for, a walkable community, that sort of thing. It'll be nice to see this on a map, because then you can group things together and say, we'd like to see something go here, and start advertising using those as parameters.
Completely agree. And that's going to be one of the requests when I meet with John Burt to talk about, is to put a map together for that, at least for the relative properties. But it'd be nice to have all the properties on there, and then we can dive into the details. So I will definitely work on that.
I think that's great. I think that's we need tangible items, and I think the master plan is beautiful, but in the meantime, we can't buy all those properties and nobody's selling them right now. And so what are we doing in the meantime?
Yeah, if we have a master plan, and I don't know if we want to call it a master plan, but a thought process of what we can do. The planning department can come to the council with incentive-based opportunities for people, to motivate them to do different things. So, but that's all part of the plan, I guess. That's what needs to be.
Right. Well, we can't, obviously, to build something, you may have 2 or 3 of these properties like a couple right next to each other, but then you would need that property in the middle. So then you could start planning for acquisition if you needed to. You could start looking and, asking the person if they want to partner. I mean, if they have a shop front or a storefront or some piece of property that, they can join with the town in including it in that walkable space. And then, they benefit from it as well. Because once you add these two properties to this one property in the middle and the property on the outside, you have one walkable area and everybody benefits from it, including the person who owns that one parcel in the middle.
For sure. Yep, completely agree.
I also think, with SB Butler, Cutler, Mary Morrison is technically being used as a housing facility for the school system as far as like, they have a couple programs there in the evening. I think robotics may have been there. But that's another, they're kind of calling it mothballing it just in case the enrollment goes up, they can open up Mary Morrison again. But we should already have a plan because eventually that school's going to come to us. What is that plan? When I first joined the council, I met on a makeshift committee that was like this, and it was a whole bunch of buildings in Groton that were sitting there, but we didn't have a turnover plan from the school. So we own the buildings when we build them, right? We get the money from the state, we build these buildings, and until that building's done and the ribbon's cut and everything's signed off, then it becomes the exclusive use of Board of Ed. When Board of Ed's done with it, they turn it back over to the town. It's our problem, our building, our thing to sell, our thing to maintain. That also needs to be included in here. How is it? What is our expectation? How many days, from closure to move out to, in this document, it's funny to see because we drafted, like jotted down on paper with John Bird, I think it was Patrice Granatowski and myself, because there was no turnover even for the schools at the time. It was just kind of like, well, we just call up the town and, it was just the old way, which is great. But when you have this many schools that were vacating, there was no plan. And so we really need to think about that. SB Butler is a great example. I mean, Mary Morrison should be on our radar. We should already be thinking like when that's done being mothballed and they think that they want to get rid of it, what do we need over there in the town? Could that be a good community center? Or could that be this? So wait, we have Fitch Middle. We just need a little bit more updates on a regular basis of where our properties are, where they stand, what's the concerns, and have them vetted in a numeric order of priority.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're here coming up with this document to get to the second stage, which is development that property evaluation committee, right? I mean, that's the goal. That's what we need to get to.
Right.
Which is why we're doing what we're doing. But those are good points, and I will include that.
I'm sorry, I cut out. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say I'm going to include some timeframes
Right.
on the property listing as well.
And one of the big things people always say, everybody comes and they say they go to Groton. Where do they go? Dairy Queen, Paul's Pasta. Those are like two separate entity points. Go to the high school. But when you come to Groton, most people go to the Groton side of Mystic. We have no center Groton that's a, kind of like you go to Guilford and you pull in and it's like shops and boutiques and parking. And so we have to, I'm hoping that with this, the thought is that we're not just taking the highest bidder when we're throwing out RFPs, we're trying to fit it into that master plan, what our vision is, okay? It's not just the dollar amount we're making, because any of these properties being used and functioning and moving is bettering our town. But that's my hope is, I think the reason I'm so passionate about this committee is where's our center Groton? Where do we, and some have said, I think the signs that we got are absolutely beautiful, right? You come off the highway, but it says explore more. And I'll say this, nothing against what's on there. The sign, when you get to the corner of 117 and Route 1, it says police department, town annex, and town hall. Tourists aren't looking for the police department, town hall, and town annex. Explore more Groton, police, town annex, town hall. The people who use those are everyday people like us. On there should be Bluff Point, Mystic, Esker Point, Haley Farm, Fitch High School this way, because that's where the school buses are coming off and families going to sporting events. So I'm hoping even that the signage, is the growth. And so it's just, there's no center. And I'm hoping that we can come up with a plan. So anyway, that's just my
Yep, understand. Well, that's why we're doing this work to help come up with a master plan and move things forward. All right, any other, these have been great comments and I've taken some good notes, so we'll be moving forward for sure. Any other thoughts you have on the, Councilor Bordelon, did you want to go through your comments?
I read them the last time. I'm good. I'm good tonight. I mean, I think we just kind of were brainstorming. I think it was great to just kind of have an organic thought process, because I think before we were kind of jumping into the note side, and I think for me it was, what is our master plan?
Yeah, though this has been a very productive meeting, more so than the last couple, so.
I think this has been very good for me as well. The only thing I would ask is, David, are there tasks that I need to take away from this? Anything that I need to do to prepare for the next meeting? Or, I mean, granted, that's putting you on the spot, but if something comes up in the next week or so, let me know if there's something you need me to do, so that I can go after that task and get it done.
Okay, nothing specific that I specifically need, other than if you wanted to provide comments on the draft process. We've told the public that we're providing comments, so I put some comments out there. Councilor Bordelon's put some comments on there. If you want to provide some comments that you have, I'll include them on the next agenda as well. So that way, what I want to make sure we're doing is providing the public with all the information that we're putting together.
Okay.
For the next meeting. So why don't we talk about the next meeting? I have a firm commitment that night at 6:45. So 5:30 to 6:30 is fine for me. But I'm doing, long sort of pictures of my extended family, so I can't be late for that. But I do want to move forward and open this up to a live meeting. So I don't know, maybe we do that the first one in September. So if we can run through the tasks that we're moving forward, I'll put some more documentation together. Hopefully work with the town manager on getting some more documents for that meeting. We have another meeting like this to kind of flush through some more information. If I can get some stuff out to you before that, would that be a good idea to have more of an in-person meeting? We invite the public to come out and provide comments if we're able to give them some good documentation for the first week of September. Just want to get your thoughts on that, and also thoughts on extending this committee. How much further do you want to go? Do you want to start that process sooner rather than later? I also want to, I'm not, I feel bad because July went by and we didn't get a lot accomplished. I also want to try to move this forward, get John Burt's staff to look at the comments we're making and really get this to the council, because I feel as we're, Portia makes good points about the master plan. I want to move this forward because Claude Chester's there and there's a lot of other properties. So you may not agree with me, but I'm a believer in, I'd rather get a B- out the door and make it better to become an A later than to wait to get an A+ document. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on those three points there in terms of next meeting, inviting others to participate, open meeting for all, and then, trying to finalize this and get it to the council after John Burt reviews it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can understand the B minus, because right now I think we hover much lower than that as we, that's why we're forming this, because there's a missing links going on. And so anything's gonna be better than the process that we currently have. But with that, I do think there should be some public input. I think we should be, we did open it up for public comment. So I think that's great. I also think that if anyone has any draft recommendations, it doesn't mean we're gonna put them in, but I think that we should be accepting those by email, which I think we have.
Yes.
And we can start to vet those and see if we want to start putting some of those in. So maybe an all call for any additional additions. I think it'd be helpful to see Scott Westervelt's, Councilor Westervelt's any edits, and then put all of us all on one master sheet so we can kind of start to see it as a flow. But I do think that we could bring in some more people in this committee. I'm not sure what you guys think. If community folks that are really interested in the property, or I'm very open to whatever. I think we should move kind of quickly, but I also am cautious because I want to make sure it's right. Obviously, the town's still going to run without any of this documents. It's been doing that already. So I do think that we, with Claude Chester there, we could start to put some of this stuff forward, but I don't want to just rush it either. But I mean I can see, but if it's going to be a standing group moving forward, I think what we start here will only get better. If truly this propels into being a standing form of group with the town manager that is constantly reviewing and editing and molding to fit the needs of our community, I think a B- document would be okay.
I agree with all of that. And I do think that, like, for the next meeting, I think we do need to have another meeting so that we can incorporate any of the comments that I have. And so that we can put something together that for a first meeting in September, that we can, invite people in to comment on, invite people in to participate in. So are you thinking about an in-person meeting, David?
Yes, I was thinking in-person meeting with, the map displayed, the property listing displayed, the draft document with the edits we're making, and really just have I don't know if you want to call it a public hearing, whatever, but open session to have people come out and give their comments on what we are able to provide to them several days before, but also have on display at the meeting, is what I was thinking.
I think that would be good for either the first week. Might be a bit aggressive in September, but we can probably get it together. Obviously, I to be honest, kids are going to be going back to school. Kids are going off to college. There's a lot of stuff in the next couple of weeks that are going to be happening. So I don't know that we would be able to focus too much on a larger meeting than we're having right now. Trying to add too much to that agenda. So I think your 6:45 hard stop or 6:30 hard stop is an easily achievable thing for 2 weeks from now. And then get together at the beginning of September to invite people in to take a look at it. I think we could probably bring that together.
Okay, so
when do the kids actually go back to school in Groton? Isn't it the 1st of September? Not the first, like September 1, but I think it's like later towards Labor Day, isn't it?
yeah, Labor Day is the 5th, so
I don't have Portia, you're muted.
I don't even know. I haven't even looked that far. I thought it was the 29th, but maybe it is September. So
I'm okay. I don't have a kid in the Groton Public Schools anymore. So,
but what I'm also looking at is in 2 weeks. So 1, 2, when I look at the calendar, that's the 17th, correct? That's the meeting where you said, Councilor McBride, you have to leave at a hard stop at 6:30.
yes.
And then we go 2 more, we're in August 31st. So we have 2 more meetings technically we can have in the month of August. So that I think is 2 really good working. And then moving to September, I think we should extend our time so that my vision would be, right, by then we have 2 more working meetings. I have more edits that I would like to add. McBride took some of our verbal notes tonight to throw in there. Whatever you bring in, Councilor Westerbrelt, whatever else McBride brings in, or anything else we receive, or ideas that pop in our head. As I talk to community people out there, I'm thinking in September. So that next meeting would be 1, 2, that would be September 14th. But I think that meeting may want to start around 5:30, but maybe go to like 7, because we're going to be.
What we told the public was the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month. So
right, we would have to have a special meeting if we wanted to have the 31st. I'm sorry, David.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of my other group I'm a part of that's every 2 weeks, hard every 2 weeks. So I apologize for that aggressive thought, but
we could do that if you desire to do the 31st. And then,
I personally do, only because we've missed 2 meetings. We missed 1, for vacation, and 1 I could not make. So to me, I think we bossed it out and we stick to that 6:30. We're a little over now, but we stick to that 6:30 hard stop. And if we can get in the 17th and the 31st, we'll have everybody's notes from this group. And then we take those notes like Councilor McBride states, and that would be, you said the 1st and 3rd, which would be the 7th. That's not the meeting you have to leave early, is that correct?
no,
So the 7th, I would plan to be here longer. So we'd say 5:30 to like 7, so that we allow for people to come and speak to our hard document that we put up. Because I just want to be able to close that out. So on the 31st, we would finish the document and it would be up for a whole week for public to view.
yes, be out that Friday would be the goal.
Right.
Okay, I think that can be accomplished.
And
Okay,
then we can take a little bit of a break, but I think if we make that 1 week up, it would be a nice push, and we'll have a good document ready to present for a first read and a community input.
No, that sounds like a good plan. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah. And if so, that would be the 7th then. And so we'd have to secure a location, maybe the senior center, or somewhere, one of the rooms there, or the town annex. So we could work on that ahead of time and maybe secure it from 5:30 to 7. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, I will do 5:30 until it's over. Yeah, we'll do
Yeah.
whatever.
So we can start to put that out, and I think that'd be great. And I think then we'll get some feedback. People will have a whole week or two to see. Well, how many days would that be? That would be more than a week, right? If we finish the document, or wrap up all of our thoughts on the 31st, and try to have something submitted by that, yeah, we can have it up for about 5 days before we actually deliberate on it.
Before we invite the public into, well, I mean, the public is always invited, but I mean, before we
Yeah.
have an open meeting with the public for comments, everything else. Okay.
And we just tell everybody this is draft 1. This is not our final draft. This is just, we're at that point that we got enough ink on paper that we are ready to bring people in to say what's going on. And from there, then we start bringing in some community members as we move into our second phase.
I think
It's up to you guys. I mean, I'm fine with appointing people on, or how, I don't know what the process for all that it would be, but I do think it would be great to have their input.
But
And
what we could also do is we have received a few people who have expressed interest. Why don't we have those people who are interested also come out on the 7th?
okay,
We can, that way we'll have a list of individuals that have expressed interest, as well as opening up to people from now until the 7th, unless you think you want to get people on before then.
I'm open to whatever your guys' direction is. I also think that a message to John Burt and the economic development and the people who do the Facebook with a nice little slogan saying, first, run of the, draft of this, please come out and share your comments on the 7th. And we can start to get that posted now, a month in advance, so that people know that they're going to start reading through our documents.
Yep, I can do that. So I guess back to the question, is everybody okay with waiting to extend invitations to committee members until we receive more input from people through the 7th? Because I think we've had a few people, but we really haven't been, in my opinion, out in the public. So I think there may be some other people that may be of interest.
Okay.
I'd like to give a little bit more time if possible.
I think that's pretty fair, because we've opened up every meeting with a public comment. So we're definitely giving the opportunity to speak, and anybody can email any of their edits and additions to the chair to have them read here and considered. So I think that's fair. After that public comment on the 7th, our next meeting would be the 21st. And we could see at that meeting on the 7th, we could say that we're seeking members that are interested. And on the 21st, we could start to move in that direction. But I'm completely open to whatever you guys want. I'm just excited to get going.
All of that sounds good. And, even if we don't officially have, we want to officially bring people into the committee, but we're going to have people coming in to make comments, and those are going to be welcome as well. So we're going to be getting public input all along. So I think that's a great idea. That all of those timeframes sound good.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So we have a plan. Any other comments? This has been a very, very productive meeting. Thank you both.
Yeah, no, I think this will be great. A little push in August, and then we can kind of start to move, more regularly.
And I'll probably meet with I'll ask John Burt if he has some time to meet and go over all this, so I can make sure he's on the same page and get all this stuff out and about.
And I encourage the town staff to attend the meetings if they're interested too. I know on other committees, sometimes they can attend. So, John Burt's always welcome to attend and, help in the process. We would definitely, if he's here and we have a question, it would be great to have people here that we could call on. So.
For sure. Yep.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay. Thank you all. Any other comments or questions?
Don't melt tomorrow. We're going to be pretty hot again.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, this heat wave. We're feeling. Maybe we should start planting some palm trees as our economic Route 1 ways. No, I'm just joking, but it's pretty warm. So.
Yeah, stay cool as best you can. All right. Anyone entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to
yes.
adjourn?
It's earlier than last night, so this is great.
That's true. All right, I think that was Counselor Westervelt with the motion. Is that correct? And Counselor Bordelon second.
Second.
And any discussion on a motion to adjourn?
No, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. It's exciting.
Yes, this is exciting. We've got some work to do. The next month should be a good roller coaster ride. So let's get
And-
moving.
And Scott, if you have your edits anytime soon, I'm excited to read them. So,
All right, excellent.
all right.
Thank you both.
Get that
Have a
stuff
good evening.
together. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.